Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aiken, and
I'm Keith Isles, and we are both independent filmmakers who enjoy discussing movie franchises and connected media. And for this Predator special, we are really pleased to welcome back to the podcast Aaron Percival from the AVP Galaxy website. So welcome, Aaron.
Thank you for inviting me back on, and hello to all your listeners.
Yes, well, I mean, obviously we had you on probably about a year ago, just over a year ago, when we talked about Alien Covenant, and we put that one to rights. And
yes, aka the Ridley Scott support group.
Exactly. There you go. And although I love Ridley, even though I have problems with that film, but anyway, with the recent release of The Predator in the cinemas, playing now as you're listening to this podcast, we thought that's another franchise that we should talk about, and it just felt fitting to get the sort of resident expert to join us on it. So Aaron, for anyone who didn't hear the other podcast, and shame on them if they didn't, but do you want to just start by letting our listeners know a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what AVP Galaxy is?
Sure, I will try and condense this. The name's Aaron Percival, as already said. I go by the alias of Corporal Hicks online, and I co-run Alien vs Predator Galaxy, avpgalaxy.net, which is pretty much the longest running and I guess largest these days Alien and Predator fan community online, spread across all the different social medias and all the different platforms, which keeps me busy. Obviously we spend a lot of time reporting on new films and new media and stuff like that coming up, or the books or the games, anything like that. And The Predator and Shane Black's been keeping me busy for the last year or so.
I bet it has. So I think we also need to say at the beginning of this podcast is we've discussed briefly, we haven't really discussed anything about the films themselves, but we have said that this is probably going to be a spoilerific podcast. So if you're a big fan of the Predator franchise, I can't think of any reason why you'd be listening to this otherwise. But if you are and you haven't seen any of the films, or most definitely the most recent one, The Predator, you might want to actually, listen to this once you've seen the movie, because we are going to be discussing plot details, character details, and the climax of the film. So you've been warned, folks.
I had to resist a groan then.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the mention of the end.
Yes.
Well, yes. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, before we get to The Predator, then, let's just do a sort of very overview journey of the films leading up to this, and I'm sure we'll get into other media and books and comics and stuff like that further down the track. But always ask our guests this first, because you're our guest and we're glad to have you on. But you wouldn't be running a fan site if you weren't a big fan of Alien and Predator. So just give us a little bit of sort of your journey, how you came to find this franchise, because I think you're a little younger than Simon and I. So when you first saw it and how you got involved with it.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm 29 next month, so I'm a bit younger than you.
I'm jealous. Yes.
Yeah, so Predator, I came to it through Alien. Alien's an even longer story, but it was through Alien and the Alien vs Predator games that I was first exposed to Predator, played the games, and naturally I wanted to know what this other creature was, this other series was that would be sharing screen time with my Alien. And my father had the first one on VHS, And I remember watching that on my VHS player that was older than me. Funnily enough, it was actually the VHS player my dad brought with his first ever wage packet when he was a kid. That it was that old. But yeah, so I watched that, and then I heard all about this mythical alien head in Predator 2, and I borrowed, again, VHS. I'm still pretty old, guys. Borrowed the VHS from a school friend, and I always remember Predator 2 having a pretty bad rap, but I enjoyed it from that first watch, to be honest. Both of them I obviously enjoyed from the very first watch. So even though it was through Alien that I explored them, I did fall in love with them for being there and entirely their own thing. And like Alien as well, the films are very different in tone as they progress. Even more so with the Predator, which I suppose tonally you could kind of call the Alien Resurrection of the Predator series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Although, to be honest, I think I found the Predator more enjoyable than Resurrection. But yeah.
Fair enough.
So, that's the short story.
All right. What about you, Simon? I mean, you're clearly a big fan of this as well. I'm sure we've talked about it before or we've mentioned it on various episodes, haven't we?
Yes.
The first film.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned in the last podcast, when I was a teenager, me and my friends would talk a lot about films, and it was mainly the sort of Arnie films, Terminator, Commando, and Predator. And of course, at the time, CBS Fox had brought out like a collection of Arnie films which had Raw Deal, Commando, and Predator, and I was able to get those for Christmas. I don't know how I did it, but I convinced my mum to get me these 18 rated films when I was like 13. And so Predator, out of the three of them, was the one I used to watch the most, even though I really enjoy Raw Deal. I mean, Commando is a lot of fun, but Raw Deal is I really enjoy, because
it was one of your picks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When we went there, yeah.
And so I really enjoyed, so Predator I watched a lot, and we used to quote the lines and all that stuff. And then I remember the video came out for the Commodore 64, and I didn't own a Commodore 64. I was one of these kids that went from an Acorn Electron and jumped straight to a Commodore Amiga. So it was quite technology-wise, it was a huge leap from one to the other. Going from tape to disc. But it was only a few years later, after seeing Predator, owning Predator on VHS, that Predator 2 came out. So I immediately, when it was available for rental, went down my shop and was able to rent the copy. It's amazing what we got away with when we were kids, because I still wasn't 18 yet. I was able to rent 18 films. Yes, my video rental store was very understanding. And again, so I really enjoy Predator 2. It was it was great that they can sort of continued the story and brought it into a city. Now, in the lead up to it, I remember actually reading the Predator comic from Dark Horse called Urban Jungle, which Predator 2 is kind of based on. I mean, they don't go there fully, because in the comic book it's Dutch's brother who's the cop, and there's this whole bit where there's actually multiple predators. You can actually Dutch's brother is able to get one of the Predator helmets, and you can see that there's these ships floating over the sea. And it's like, wow, they're doing that as a film. That's going to be great. And of course they had to change it for budgetary reasons, because what you can do in a comic book, at the time you couldn't really do, practically as a film. So but I enjoyed the film for what it was. I mean, again, it's another quotable film. I mean, especially Gary Busey, the lions, the tigers. Oh my. And and then of course Dark Horse did Aliens versus Predator comic book, and that was really good, and I really enjoyed that. And I played the video games. When I bought a PC, the game that came with it was Alien versus Predator, so that was a lot of fun. I mean, I always preferred playing as the Colonial Marine because that was a lot more. That had a lot more tension to it than playing the Predator or the Alien. The Predator, you felt a bit more invincible, and the Alien wasn't that fun to play. To tell the truth,
it was sickness inducing until you got used to it.
Yeah.
Oh man, the speed of those games.
Yes, I mean, because you were crawling up the walls and stuff, and of course it's all first person point of view, so it's a bit I mean, I haven't played the sort of the other games that came after it, but I think was there like a third person view when it came to it, or was it always first person?
AVP has pretty much always been first person. There's been a couple of side shoot offs. There's been an RTS. There was a really cheap and quick tie into the second AVP movie that was third person. Okay. But there was a really good Predator game actually, which was it had the same title as the comic. It was Concrete Jungle. But it wasn't based on it. It was in the future and whatever, so slightly in the future. But that was actually really good for what it was.
Yeah. I mean that's always been the fun thing looking back at Predator 2, that they saw that as the for the future from when it was made. It's kind of, we've gone past that now, and LA has not become a cesspit, or has it? I don't know. Maybe they keep those gang wars quiet. But
and we really missed the fashion with the shiny coats and the hats, didn't we? Well, I mean, again, it's enjoyable, and at least they knew, again, we got another great. They knew how to do the Predator. And I think that was the last time they really got to do the Predator properly, because from that point onwards, when we got the two AVP films, the Predator became more of like a wrestler. They were sort of cumbersome, and they didn't seem to be that agile. They didn't, they just sort of throwing. They were with the fights with the alien. They just sort of threw them around and smashing them up against things. It did look like, especially the first one, it looked like, that the Predator was like a wrestler throwing his opponent about. And then,
they leaned it down for the second one, fortunately. But the first one, it was bulked up as hell.
Yeah. And the second one was just an absolute mess. I mean, the Predator in that was a lot better than the other ones, but it was just, again,
you're talking about Requiem now.
Yeah,
okay.
And then of course when Predators came out, that was a lot of fun. That felt more like the original Predator, though I never bought Adrian Brody as the character he's playing. Not that I'm not saying that he had to be like a bulked up Arnie character, but the character didn't seem to fit him. He was trying to be the Arnie character, but he just didn't have the build for it. I mean, he even did the whole thing of covering himself in mud, bare chested, and it just for me it didn't work. I mean, there was a couple of things in that film that I think they could have done a lot better that they didn't do, but it's still an enjoyable film. I mean, I have problems with the sort of the other Predators they introduce into this, and the way that they treat the original Predator.
You have to remember, Adrian Brody was an Academy Award-winning actor.
He was, yeah. So,
where Arnie had the brawn, Adrian Brody had the gold statue, right?
Yeah.
Problem with that
But,
film was it was made so fast and so cheap as well. So, you've got. I don't normally like to focus on actors' physiques and physical appearances for films and stuff, but when you have Lawrence Fishburne as a guy that's supposedly been there for
Yes.
several years, surviving on scraps and whatever he can get, and
he was holding reserves.
I think he was not only killing the other people he came across for their equipment, but I think he was dining on them as well, because he was quite, he looked like he was eating quite well.
And how fitting that he ended up in Hannibal. There you go.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, I just briefly want to say that I didn't like the new Predators. The spider mouth Predators. They look ridiculous, and unfortunately, this is a problem that they've continued with the Predator, where it's like they have this really well designed character. And they go, well, well, the audiences have seen that, but we got to give them something bigger, better. And the bigger ones they just look terrible. I mean, I am jumping ahead a little bit, but I have to say,
yes.
I just want to say that the in the Predator, the new model, just looks awful. But there you go. That's my whole experience with Predator.
Yeah. So you're very mixed on it then, like most of us, I think. But
yes,
I mean, for me, obviously, I've got very fond memories of getting an ex-rental VHS copy of Predator, and it was in that golden time when CBS Fox, they did that, and it was around the time that Die Hard came out as well. Both John McTiernan films, and they did this thing where they also had a separate video cassette that had what would now be called an EPK. It was just a sort of very brief behind the scenes promotional video with it, which at the time I thought was absolutely amazing, because it was hard to get behind the scenes stuff for some of your favorite films. So I have a really fond memory of that for sure. And then I didn't actually play any of the video games. I was a ZX Spectrum child during the home computer phase when I was at school, and I was aware of the Dark Horse comics from the like you've already mentioned, the Alien comics and whatever, and knew that there was Predator crossovers and sort of tie-ins and stuff with that. And I remember when it came to the second film, I was very lucky because our local cinema that I used to attend actually would do a lot of sort of late night double bill screenings.
Oh, okay.
And they actually did a Predator double bill, so I was able to see both of those films on the big screen, which was wonderful, because this is before the widescreen editions or anything were available on VHS. And as like you guys, I very much enjoyed the second film. I didn't have a problem with it at all. I liked the fact they did something a bit different. And I liked Danny Glover from the Lethal Weapon films. It was good to see him playing more his age rather than playing someone older for once. And I thought he was a good foil for them, and worked well in the franchise as well. So I was always a big fan of all of that. I also really liked the production design of the alien ship at the end of Predator 2. The Predator ship at the end of Predator 2, should I say? Because, it really was of another world. That was one of the things that, they retconned slightly in the AVP films, and also in the Predator as well. and I sort of preferred that more sort of out of this world design that they done with that. And then of course obviously we had the trophy case with the alien skull, which was a great little Easter egg, back then. So I really loved those two movies, and I was always excited to see more. Alien versus Predator films, I was more in love with the idea than I was the finished products, if that makes sense. I didn't totally hate the first one, although it did make, for me, the first two Predator films, I don't know whether it was just when I was younger or what, but I saw that the Predator sort of scared me in the way that the Alien did in the first two Alien films. And when I don't know, the sort of viewpoint of the first Alien versus Predator film kind of, turned the Predator into a bit of a hero and whatever. And I don't know, it kind of ruined it a little bit for me because, as I said, I'd always found the Predator as scary as the Alien, and I thought, wow, putting those two together's a scary combination. But yeah. I felt that the film kind of, well, it did, like you said, Simon, it kind of turned it into sort of a tongue-in-cheek wrestling match in some respects.
Yes.
And both of those films were, just okay. Although, I bought them on home media and watched all the special features and was still kind of, obsessed and blown away by it, even though slightly disappointed. And then the same reaction for me with Predators, which, we hoped would be like the Aliens of the of that franchise. And again, I need to rewatch it. I've only seen it 2, maybe 3 times, but I was disappointed by it. I felt that the characters did stupid things like knowing they only had a limited amount of ammo, but then would start firing into the forest, like, obviously to try and homage the first film, I guess. But it didn't make any sense in the situation they were in.
Yeah.
I also had a problem with, which they sort of retconned in the Predator, actually, was that the dog things in Predators, to my knowledge anyway, to my understanding and my memory of it, they bled red, which I had a real problem with, because I thought, well, hold on a second, surely they'd have that sort of a luminescent green yellow blood that the Predator would have, because they're from the same planet, and all this sort of thing. Well, I noticed in the new film that was something that they did have, but so I had a bit of a problem with Predators. I wanted it to be better than it was, and we'll get on to the Predator. I won't spoil that now until we get into that discussion. But yeah, so I've kind of got mixed feelings about the franchise. For me, the Predator franchise is very much like my relationship with the Alien franchise. Is I absolutely love it and everything about it, but the only 2 films that to me are perfect and I really love are the first 2, and then the rest of it is flawed in some way or the other. And that's kind of how I feel about, both franchises.
Yeah, they both suffer from diminishing returns with their sequels.
Sometimes it's back to that old thing again, like we talk about with superheroes and with Darth Vader and all this sort of stuff, is sometimes the more you know about a character or where it comes from, when the mystery starts to get taken away, it starts to get less interesting. I don't know. For me, anyway, well, it certainly did with the Alien and with the Predator.
Well, I heard this today, and I think this is a great description of what the Predator was, especially in the first one. The Predator in the first one was like death, from the point of view that it could come from anywhere, that it was invisible, but it was always ever present. And you got that with the first 2 films, but every other film after that, you don't. I mean, that was one of my problems with Predators, was you didn't feel that they were there all the time, like you did in the first 2 films. it was a weird thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. They were put onto this planet, and okay, this is a predator hunting ground, and yet you never really felt the sense that the predators were there for quite a while. I mean, the characters
they're
were just
running from them.
Yeah, but I mean, they were just wandering around. I mean, apart from a few traps or stuff, if I was to make predators, I would have had somebody be killed immediately by one of the predators, and then they're there. The characters may not know what's hunting them, but they, as an audience, and you'll know those characters will be a bit more on edge, because for I think first 20 minutes or so, apart from there being a few traps and you get the sort of the predator dogs.
There's one in the trees, but it doesn't really hold on it long enough.
Right.
So when Danny Trejo's character dies.
Oh yes, yeah, and there's that whole. You can hear him calling out even though he's dead. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one sort of hanging in the trees, but it doesn't really focus on it.
I think that both John McTiernan and Stephen Hopkins met. That both of those first two films are very well made and very well directed, and I think having the one predator being a huge threat, an insurmountable force almost is what makes those films quite special. And I think it's become more comic booky in the latter films, to its detriment a little bit, I think. But that's just me,
Well, I mean, the thing about the first two films is that they were both written by the same writers. So
this is true, yes.
So this is always going to be a big help, because especially if you're a writer who develops the characters in the first place, then you know how they tick. It's just this, everybody else who's come on, they don't seem to quite get it. And so when Shane Black was brought on to do the Predator, we all thought, well, here's a guy, he was there on the set on the original one, so obviously he's going to have a better handle on this than, say, Paul, P.T. Anderson, or
Paul W.S. Anderson.
Sorry, yeah. I don't know why I keep calling him P.T. Anderson. Yeah, Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
I would love to see a P.T. Anderson Predator film. That would be it would be very different.
It would indeed. Sorry, Aaron, were you going to say something and I unintentionally cut you off slightly there? So apologies.
No worries. I think it was to Simon's point about starting the film off with the Predator. Mm-hmm. And if I remember rightly, I think one of the early draft that we have of that film actually started with them kidnapping Adrian Brody's character.
Okay.
So they did at least consider that at some point. And I'm one of the few people in the world that loves Predators.
Okay.
Okay.
I know it's flawed. I know there's plenty of things in it I would personally change as well, like them being three of these new ones. I wish there was just one. I wish there was one that got blew the hell up, one that got stabbed caught up and everything, and face down the main one at the end. It'd have made them seem more competent, because otherwise these guys are taken out a fair bit too easily. But I do really like that. I like the concept behind it. I like a lot of the mythology that it sort of introduced. And I do actually quite like the main new design in that one. Just is something different.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it, to be fair. Yeah, I haven't watched it, and I've got the Blu-ray set with the three films that came out a few years ago, and I need to sit down and revisit Predators at some point. But I haven't done. But fair enough.
I must admit, the couple of things that got me with Predators was how they treated the original Predator. Because you see him sort of tied up, like a punk, and it's just like, oh really? I know, okay, they're bigger predators, but he still...
It doesn't come across in the film, though, I don't think.
Okay.
I mean, personally, yeah. I mean, that was the... Like, so much of what is in The Predator is actually, like, earlier intents of Predators.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think
right.
they've never really got the predator on predator conflict as being satisfactory. You know, there's a good concept in there to be had, but when you have them done over so quickly, I mean, the guy in Predators lasts a bit longer, and the guy strung up, so you can kind of fansplain your own, justifications for how that went down and stuff. But at the end of the day, you want to see it drawn out a bit more, don't you? You want to see them both looking formidable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing, I mean, a couple more things that I had problems with was the waste of the Topher Grace character, because he was just like, oh, I don't know why I'm here. I'm all, I'm just an innocent and all this stuff, and then at the end he goes, oh no, I'm actually a serial killer. Ta-da! I was like, what a waste of a character. If we could have found if they had introduced that maybe a bit earlier, it would have made for a more interesting story, because then you could have had somebody within the group who, not only there's a threat from the predators, but there's also a threat from this, this guy who's in your group anyway. And it just felt really late in the game to introduce that. We'll just to make this end bit a bit more interesting, we'll have him, take the female character and put a knife to her throat and inject her with some poison. It's just like, it
felt like it needed a few more drafts.
Yeah.
That film was done on such quick turnaround, and you can feel it. It's rough.
And also, I also remember the sort of the advertising leading up to this, especially the shot of Adrian Brody with all the sort of targets appearing on him.
Yes.
That was like, so when that bit came up, I was like, oh, here we go. And it was just the one. I was like, what the fuck, what, and so I don't know what happened there.
It's just marketing, weren't it? It's just trying to.
Well, it's a shame because I mean that was an awesome image. I remember that from the trailer, and it's a shame, like you said, Aaron, that this was so rushed out, because when you think about it, it was 20 years since the last Predator movie, so it's not like they didn't have a lot of time. I mean, the last solo Predator movie, let's not forgetting the AVP stuff. And it's a shame to think that, that they did rush it and didn't quite get it right. And I think it does. You can feel it. It doesn't feel. I mean, I don't know whether it's just nostalgia on my part, but I look at those first films, the first two, and they seem, in my eyes, like almost perfect movies. I mean, I know they've got their mistakes and their bits and pieces in them, but they just seem really, really well structured and well made and just damn fucking entertaining, whereas I don't know, I just didn't feel that with the other ones. And as I said, I don't know whether it's just because I look at it now with my older filmmaker head on, rather than my youth of all this stuff being ahead, and just liking it for a good old action sci-fi thing with a scary monster, because that's kind of how I viewed those original Predator films, as with the first two Alien films.
Well, the original Predator films, the original Predator film is a slasher film. What they've done is, instead of it being teenage kids, it's like army guys,
crack commandos. Absolutely.
So you have all this action that's thrown in at the beginning. That's why it's so bombastic, because they threw everything into that. But then as the film comes along, these guys are stripped. They're stripped of their armor. They're stripped of their weaponry. They're stripped of their comrades, until it's just Arnie versus the Predator, and it's a very it's basic, and also the fact there's hardly any dialogue at the end. I mean, for everything this film is remembered for, the one-liners, if it bleeds we can kill it, I ain't got time to bleed, stuff like that. this is what it's remembered for. But people, I think, forget sometimes is that as this film comes along, it gets very quiet. There's hardly any dialogue.
It's a more sophisticated film than I think people tend to give it credit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, next to the first two Terminator films, it's definitely, I think, the best Arnie film out of his whole, filmography. I always look at the first two Terminators and Predator as being, the absolute top of the pile for me. Yeah. It's not to say I don't enjoy his other films, because I do, but those are the top of the pile.
I would include Conan the Barbarian there as well.
Well, yes, because he was really perfect, wasn't he, for that? Really good. That's true.
But
John Milner did a good job.
But I mean, I didn't realize at the time, but again, I heard this recently, that the idea for Predator came from a joke. And the joke was that because the Rocky films were getting so big that after Rocky 4, the only way he could go was for Rocky to fight an alien. Mm-hmm. And that's where the idea of the Predator came from.
Is that true? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I mean, it worked. I think that's one thing we're all totally agreed on is the first film. Well, the first two films, I think we're agreed on work. I know people who hate the second Predator, and I just say shame on them because I don't. Some people say, oh, it's just the same thing, and then other people say it's too different, and I'm like, well, I thought what they did was really smart. To set it in the and okay, yes, we've got the sort of the then future Los Angeles as a bit of a joke now. We've actually already passed that, but they didn't go too far out there. It was it still kind of works. And I have to admit, beyond the first two films, and Aaron, you might be able to help me with this. I have to say, somewhat confused as to what the actual Predator timeline is. Meaning, obviously, the Predator takes place sort of now, 2018 or very contemporary, but I'm a bit confused where Predators sits in the whole timeline. I don't quite have my head round if that's supposed to be in 2010 or whether that's supposed to be in the future or what. I'm a little bit confused by it all, really. So I don't know whether there's a definitive answer.
Yeah, that was contemporary as well.
It was it?
It was supposed to be 2010.
Okay, because I've heard some say that it was supposed to be slightly in the future, and the Predator sits in between sort of Predator 2 and Predators, but I don't really see why.
it was a comment from Shane Black, actually.
Right.
He thought it took place in the future because it was on a different planet.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Misguided.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, if they're able to come to our planet, there's no reason why they can't take us to another planet, is there? So, I mean, that's fair enough, I think.
That's one of the things I really liked about that film was the idea of a preserve as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame they didn't play more with introducing other sort of aliens. I mean, I know there was that one guy, but it was barely in it for like 30 seconds. I wish they'd have shown more of that kind of thing, especially with the way that Predator 2 ends, where you get to see the trophy case and see there is more than humanity that these things are poking and stabbing.
Yeah
That actually gave me goosebumps at the time as a kid, or well, as a adolescent or whatever. It's definitely early teen or whatever it was. But yeah, so I love that, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that is the other thing as well. Once at the end of Predator 2, that we saw the rest of the Predator clan. To see that there were other Predators, and so when Predators came along, when I heard originally about the concept, that's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be you're going to see more Predators hunting instead of this sort of infighting that was going on between bigger Predators and the original Predator. I mean. Yeah, I don't know. It's just Hollywood seems to take a good idea and then not use it.
Well, the bigger, badder thing's a bit of an epidemic at the minute, isn't it?
Yeah.
with Jurassic
Yeah.
World and all that.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
The Predator infighting though has been a staple actually for quite a while, thanks to the the comics and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a very popular one is a series called Bad Blood, and it's basically this idea that there's a predator that doesn't follow like the others' moral codes and guidelines and hunting rules, all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
And there's another one that's essentially the police, the predator police, who's hunting this bad blood, as they call it, down. And both Predators and the Predator sort of apes on that kind of thing. I mean, the start of The Predator is essentially the opening pages of that comic.
Okay.
Truncated down quite a lot because of how fast that bloody moves. But, it's been around for a while, and it's something I think people would like to see done well.
Well, yeah, that is a great idea. That, I mean, the whole idea of because the Predators have a moral code, that what they would do if one of the Predators went against that, went its own way. So that I'd like to see, but I think Hollywood go, well, audiences wouldn't get that. They just look at the Predators and they would look very samey. So what we got to do is we got to have a bigger one, bigger, badder, meaner, and it's like, okay, but there's nothing wrong with the original design. Why do we need, because it just gets stupid. It's
yeah. Well, that's a good point that you said, Aaron, about it's a bit of a trope at the moment. It's a bit of a sort of Hollywood trend, whereas a few years back it was like, you've got to destroy a city, now it's like, you've got to have a monster 10 times bigger than the monster that's the star of the film or whatever. And it's like it's kind of it's kind of one of those things. So it's probably quite a good point for us to actually then, I guess, move on and talk about the new film. So,
yes,
go into the spoilerific segment and talk about The Predator 2018 and what we thought about that. I mean, Aaron, do you want to, as you're the guest, do you want to start off on that?
Sure. I'm actually heartbroken by that film because of how much fun it is while you're watching it, and then when it's done, and especially as it ends, that fucking ending is awful. Awful stuff.
Yeah.
So I found the film fun. That was the best way I could describe it. I did genuinely love the cast and the characters, and the humor. I know that was an element that quite a few people had issues with, but if it wasn't for those elements, I think this film would be just trash to me, because the film moves so fast that you can't think about stuff that's happening, and you can almost feel them in the edit bay trimming it down by the second to the last second that somebody says a piece of dialogue before it moves off onto the next one. And then when it's all said and done and you think back to the plot, and it's just like, what happened here? I mean, I don't know whether it was the edit, whether it was the script, but it was a mess.
Yeah, it was a mess. I mean, from all reports that the shooting script for this wasn't very good. I give Shane Black his props for trying to change things up a bit, but it just felt so much like fucking the Star Wars prequels. It was just too much messing around, too much trying to explain stuff. I mean, the Predators now have their own midichlorians. It's like, why do we? There was. So I think they went into this with a not very good script, and then of course they had a really bad preview screening of this, and and they went back and they reshot the ending, and I know, Aaron, you probably know what that original ending was, but do you know, Keith?
I actually don't know what the original ending was. I mean, it's very apparent from watching this film, unfortunately, that things were reshot
Yeah.
because it does feel very, very jarring.
I can tell you the point where it kind of does. It sort of it goes because there's a really horrible cut. There's in the bit by the ship when it's suddenly, when there's sort of they just been announced that this countdown's happening, and then suddenly cut like that, and then suddenly they're somewhere else. It's like, well, the original ending was that there's an Area 52 where they've been housing these rebel predators, and they actually help in fighting the. What are we going to call the new predator? Is it
the upgrade?
The upgrade, yeah.
The Uber Predator.
Yeah.
No, yes.
So they join forces with the loonies to fight the upgraded Predator, and it's all shot during the day. So there's actually bits from the trailer where you see the guys on a tank or a armored personnel carrier and firing like big machine guns and stuff. And you actually saw Predators, in kind of like army fatigues and stuff like that. So I would have been curious to see that, because that would have been kind of different. I mean, I don't know how my reaction would be to it. It doesn't seem kind of fitting for Predators. But then the problem with the sort of the main Predator we have in this is that he's come to help us. Yet what does he do? He keeps skinning, killing, attacking the people he's supposed to help. Was he going, oh, sorry guys, I'm a predator, that's what I do. Yeah.
Especially as we can understand him now. Sorry.
That's a victim of the reshoots and the rewrites, because he didn't come to help originally. He was there to stop this other predator having what was originally on its ship, because oh my god, the leak script is batshit, very crazy. And they just like throw a load of new elements to the lore. So how they add all the stuff with the human DNA and everything. The idea was that these guys are all tinkering with themselves, and they had loads of weird hybrids. So those dog things were supposed to be predator dogs, literally predator hybrid dogs with. That's why they've got the dreadlocks and everything. So there would have been all these crazy predator spider things and gecko things and that kind of nonsense. And he was just the fugitive predator was just trying to stop the big one from getting all those stuff. So he wasn't there to help us, and that was something that just cropped up in during another reshoot stuff.
I mean, it was great that Shane Black got Fred Decker to come back and his own old writing partner to come and do this. But the thing was, when I was watching this film, it did feel like a Fred Decker film. Now, for those who don't know, Fred Decker is a director from he made two great films in the 80s, which is the Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps, and they all have a very similar story to them. They're all about school kids who are kind of they're outsiders, they get picked on, and they always sort of, there's always a bully character who gets their comeuppance. It's like Fat Kid in the Monster Squad, and in this you got the kid who's got autism, and he kind of gets picked on as well by these two bullies. I was kind of worried there when I first saw that scene in the school where they set off the fire alarm and he's there on his own, and the noise is affecting him. And I'd really thought, oh no, don't go there, guys. You don't. This is not the time to have one of those scenes where the bully beats up the kid. And thankfully they didn't go there, but it was kind of like, ooh, okay. I'm not quite expecting this in a Predator film, but okay. And yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, when I saw the sort of press images of the cast and saw there was a kid in there, I was like, okay, there's going to be a kid in the Predator. Then, you know, it's not going to be very gory, then, is it? And it was kind of gory, but it was CGI gore, so it was like everything else. It was very quick. I mean, you had one body that gets strung up, but you know, you blink and you miss it.
I mean, what is it? You know, this seems to be, like you were saying, about things that Hollywood are doing at the moment, and it just seems that as well that every frigging blockbuster film that's being made now ends up having, you know, extensive reshoots, and you know, some of them. Some of them it's fairly invisible in, and then there's others where you know, we talked obviously on some of the podcasts about like Justice League, where it's very obvious, and I think it was pretty obvious in this one, unfortunately, that it had gone through that as well, and it's kind of a shame. I mean, I kind of, part of me, I think we're all kind of on the same page with this. Part of me was hoping, obviously we hadn't discussed this before, that we'd all be sort of massively disagreeing with one another, because it's like the last time we did this was when we had Ross Shepherd on to talk about Solo, and we all kind of gushed about it and we all enjoyed it, and you know, the feedback I got from other people was, oh, you know, there's lots of people that think that film sucks, and it's a shame one of you didn't think it sucked. And I was wondering whether one of you guys might actually sort of love this Predator movie. And I kind of went in wanting to love it, but what I found with it was what I call an enjoyable mess. And the reason I say that is, yeah, I mean, when I was actually watching it, I really enjoyed it. I had a really good time in the cinema with it, but the minute that I sort of left the cinema and started thinking about it, be like the fanboy in me wants to, you know, I had sort of shitloads of problems with it, particularly, you know, with that last act, you know, and you know, it's a shame, because I like Shane Black and in his films generally. And I think, you know, I love all his character stuff. I mean, normally I have a problem sometimes with having too much humor in a you know, what needs to be serious, but in this case I thought it totally worked, because you had, you know, you had a boy with autism, a bunch of military misfits, and a couple of strong female characters, and the banter and all of that sort of stuff I thought worked really well. I mean, it's one of those things Shane Black does incredibly well, and it worked well in this, and it didn't seem silly in this because of the setup of it. But there were just other things that seemed silly, like, you know, well, the ending that we will come on to in detail, I'm sure. But there was just, you say about it, I felt this as well. Yes, it moved along at a pace, but it moved along at a pace where sometimes you'd be like, huh? Hold on. How long ago did they leave? When did they get there? How did they get a police car? What? You know, and it was all kind of confusing. And I mean, I saw, it's nothing wrong with films moving at a quick pace. I saw a sort of mystery thriller black comedy film called a Simple Favor, which stars Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick, and moves along really, really fast, really jumps ahead and moves fast. But you can connect all the dots really well and follow it really well, and it works quite nicely. Whereas this, you know, I'm fairly sort of switched on when I'm watching movies, but there were bits in it where I'm thinking, well, hold on a second, where did that come from? How did they get there? Oh, why did she happen to turn up there? Oh, was that several days later then, or is this happening the same day? I was really, through the whole thing, kind of confused with the with the sort of timeline of the film itself. You know, and
you're quite right there, because it feels like the whole thing takes place over a couple of days. Yet, you know, the whole incident in Mexico and our main character being picked up and brought back, you know, it literally looks like that that night the Predator ship crashes and he knocks out the Predator, and then he's in Mexico and he sends the stuff, and it arrives that day to his to his son house, even though the postman says, "Oh, we've had this in storage for a while," and he's got all
exactly.
It's like,
yeah, that's what I didn't get. I was like, hold on a second.
And, so the thing is,
the wrong address,
and the main thing as well. So in Mexico, he swallows that little ball device that makes him go invisible, and then he passes it
out weeks later.
If that's how it's going, but but the way the film is cut, it feels like it is literally the next day when he poops it out.
I'm so glad you guys are saying this as well, because I actually thought, shit. When I came out, I was like, oh, did I miss something? Was I too? Because sometimes because of my head canon and being a bit of a mythology geek with franchises, when I should be following a film, I'm sometimes thinking, oh, how does that fit in with the other film, and doing all those sort of geeky things. And I thought, oh shit, was my mind off doing that and I missed something? But I didn't, did I? It's really fucked up, isn't it?
It's really fucked up. It's studio interference on a major scale. I mean, I think, talking about missing stuff, did you actually see how Sterling K. Brown died? He's like the main bad guy.
Yes, he turns his head, and the gun, the Predator gun goes with it, doesn't it? He blows his own head off.
I saw it, but it didn't register. And then when the ending did turn up, I was like, oh, where's the villain?
It was pretty quick, I must admit. They did do it quick.
The first time I saw it.
Right.
Right.
Oh, God, have you seen this more than once?
Hey, I have to.
Oh, have you? Oh, okay. I've not seen it again, I have to admit.
Okay.
But, okay. Oh, well, maybe you can fill in some of the gaps then.
I'll try to.
Because I was there and I was enjoying it. I was laughing at it. As I said, I found the characterization, banter stuff good. They didn't skimp on the violence, but then they sort of did, because it was a bit quick in places. And I thought some of the CG was terrible, like on those dog things and stuff. Yeah. And I had a real problem. You see, that was the other thing. And I don't know why. I don't know whether it was my little fanboy headcanon stuff going on or what. But when they had in the last act and they had the reveal of what the special weapon that they had, which was going to thing, I was there thinking,
you thought it was going to be
Arnie? Well, I was thinking, is it going to be Arnie, or is it going to be something to do with an alien, or was it? And it ended up being like a fucking Iron Man suit modelled after a Predator.
Did you catch
and
the
I was
English?
Like, what? Did I catch the what? Sorry,
the English on the pod.
No.
It's supposed to be a Predator pod, and it literally says in English "Pod 2" on it.
Oh, you see, I hate shit like that. That really annoys me. Yeah. So it didn't even have the Predator
language.
Oh, and that was the other thing. What were your thoughts on? I'm not sure I liked the whole translation thing of the Predator language either. I mean, I know that was kind of a major plot thing, but I don't know. It took something away from the mystique of the Predator.
Yeah.
Race for me. I kind of had a bit of a problem with that, but
as an advanced species, they've got to be able to communicate. So,
but the thing is, though, they were always hunters. They had no need to communicate. But I mean, that's I mean, it's just that weird thing. It's that retconning of that species, because at the end of the day, they were an advanced species. They've got cloaking, they've got spaceships, they've got all these weapons, but it was all driven to the point so that, as a species, they could go out and hunt. Now they're talking about, well, they hunt so they can take that whole thing about, well, why they take the spinal cord of their victims, so they can use the DNA from it to upgrade themselves. I'm like, what the fuck? No, stop retconning the previous films, that's the original Predator wasn't going around going, well, I'll have that one, and I'll have that one, and I'll have that one, and I'll inject it in myself, and I'll make myself better. No, it was all progress.
It was trophies.
Yeah, trophies. And what made them, what I always saw them, how they sort of evolved, was that if they came up against a species that they couldn't kill, then they would, they would build better weapons or tactics to go up against that species. So this whole idea of them, the whole thing with they want to capture the kid for his DNA was just like, I was like, well, are we going to see it like a kid's spine being ripped out his back? I don't think so. So, there was no tension in that at all. You knew that the kid was going to be fine and rescued.
I don't know. Requiem showed us a kid get chest bursted.
Well, yes, but that was just
in poor taste. But,
that was poor taste. Yeah, that whole film's in poor taste. I mean, the whole Pred alien impregnating those the pregnant women with the chest busters was just. I mean, a disgusting idea, and also just a really crappy idea. Well, we thought at the time, but hey, Ridley Scott did one better.
Well, yeah. That's the other question. Is I assume. I mean, again, I liked all of the kind of, the references. There was the whole things from, get to the chopper to your one beautiful motherfucker.
I hated
or whatever,
that as well.
They're a bit forced. But the one thing that really I thought was totally wasted, a totally wasted opportunity, was having Jake Busey in this playing Keyes' son. 30 years after the, or 25 in the timeline or whatever it is, years afterwards. That they really, I felt that was totally wasted. They didn't make a big thing of it at all. And I was quite disappointed because I thought, well, in this case, that's fucking brilliant. You've actually got the man's son, playing the character. That's brilliant. And it was kind of, that was blinking, like you said, they were all in your face with things like get to the chopper and one ugly motherfucker and all that stuff. Oh. But this, they skipped over completely. It was like, what? Why did they do that? I don't get it.
Yeah, it wasn't originally written as him. It was a bit part that was repurposed for Busey.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that felt you can tell because, as I said, it had no real. It was wasted, wasn't it? It was totally wasted.
There's lots of little things in there that would have been fine if they'd have expanded them out. I think it feels like not only does it move so fast and feel so choppy, but there's so many things that it's throwing at you that it doesn't really even attempt to develop past an assumption or two sentences of exposition before moving on to some other assumption and of motivation and stuff like that. Like there's a whole film around capturing the predator.
Yeah,
and it does that in like the first 5 minutes. I mean, before this film came out, they did a prequel novel that was a hell of a lot better than the film ends up being actually. That was about like this organization and this specialized team that was trained by a survivor from another encounter to go out there and capture a predator. And that was phenomenal. It was a great book. And like there's things in that where like you were saying, Simon, about the whole all the predators now take trophies for the spinal fluid thing. The book, and Shane Black, granted in Twitter, not in the film, did things like said, that wasn't all of them. That was just a set faction that was doing that kind of thing. But you wouldn't know that from the film.
I was going to say, we don't know that. Yeah, great if you're going to read all the expanded universe stuff, but I know the film didn't spell it out at all, and it does. It feels like you said, a major retcon to the actual established mythology on the Predator.
Yeah.
It
And
wouldn't have been so bad if it was just, one or two tribes doing it.
yes,
Yeah. But it made it seem like it was all of them were doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
I also want to sort of talk about sort of Olivia Munn's character. So she's a biologist who specialises in sort of alien biology, even though she's never met an alien before. And so when you see her in the lab and everything, yeah, very convincing. I buy her as a scientist and stuff. And that whole sequence when she's having to decontaminate to get out of the room means taking her clothes off, and she's like naked and vulnerable, and the Predator comes in, and you think for a second, oh, is he going to do anything? And he doesn't. And then she picks up this tranquilizer gun and goes storming after him, and I was like, what? And from that point onward, she's like gung ho. She's always sort of with the guys with the guns. It's like, wait a minute, did I miss something? Is there something more to this character? Because I was introduced to a scientist. I mean, scientists are known for, doing science stuff, and there was a lot of room for that. But yet she was also running around shooting guns, and it was like, okay, this is
again, it's the other Hollywood thing about girl power at the moment, isn't it? I mean, I mean, I thought she had a decent character and a fairly decent character arc, but I mean, you can tell it's a movie of now and not a movie of when they made the originals, because suddenly you had this group of military misfit men in a hotel room with a with a passed out very attractive young woman, and obviously they turned it into a complete comedy moment, which is very much a sign of the times. I think,
that I had no problems with that. That was fine.
I didn't.
That was that was kind of funny. But I mean, it's just this whole empowered women where it's like they can do anything, and yet there's no reasoning for it. I mean, I'm not empowered, but they strong female characters. I mean, they always refer to Ripley as being a strong female character, but if anything, it wasn't that she could do everything. She had her weaknesses, and that's one of the things that I really love about that character, is the fact that in Aliens especially, she starts off in a really vulnerable position. She's gone through this ordeal and she is suffering from it, and she's asked to go back and face this, and she says, no, I don't want to go back there, but she does against her better judgment, knowing that she knows exactly what she's going into. And in that film you see her step up and go, be better than the other men, the soldiers, because they're going like, we're gung-ho, we can deal with anything. And then when they face up against the aliens, they realise that there are certain things that they can't deal with, and she steps up.
And she's believable. That's the thing that's amazing. I mean, Ripley's one of the best characters in cinema history, in my opinion.
You see her go
fabulous.
On an arc. You absolutely see her go on an absolute story arc in Aliens. So you don't see that with the likes of like Rey in Star Wars, or with Olivia Munn's character. They can do everything, and it's not earned.
Yeah. And
it's a
shame. I agree. And there wasn't time. I mean, this was the problem. You have quite an ensemble in this film.
Yeah.
And because the film did move along at a rapid pace, and obviously you've got multiple predators in there as well. This was the thing. You didn't really, other than Boyd Holbrook's character and and his son. But really, a lot of the rest of the cast don't really get the opportunity to evolve or develop much, because just because the film doesn't take a breather at all. And this is the thing, that was one of my problems with it, is I did sort of feel that yes, we got straight into action and really cool action and stuff, chasing around and stuff, love all that, but it just happened really quickly. And it was like, okay, well, we haven't, other than the boy and the dad, we hadn't really set much else up, really. So yeah, and again, I don't know whether that was an editorial thing or something from the rewrites and reshoots that happened, or whether it was just it wasn't there on the page in the first place. I don't know. Aaron, you might be able to shed some light on that for us. I don't know.
I don't remember there really being much in the way of arcs for any of the others at all. I mean, in the finished film, there's at least some slightly thematic deaths, I guess, to it. Like Trevante Rhodes' character, Nebraska. He, he's in the loony bin for trying to top himself, but he ends up helping out by killing himself to damage the ship. Sterling K. Brown's Traeger ends up being killed by the technology that is coveted. Throughout the film, and I liked Baxley and Coyle's death, Thomas Jane and Keegan Michael Key. I liked their thing because their whole thing was about how they were stuck through each other through all the crap that had happened, even though they were always at each other.
Yeah.
I mean, the execution was a teeny bit wonky, but
I was going to say, I didn't feel as sad as I felt I should have done at the end. With their demises, in the same way as in the first film, as those characters started to get sort of picked off. You kind of, I felt very invested in them from the way that they'd set everything up on the helicopter at the beginning, through the little assault they did on that camp and stuff, and it just kind of, I just sort of felt, obviously it was a much slower paced film, but in the original film I kind of felt something for all the characters, whereas in this I thought they were quite likable and quite funny, but I didn't really feel that I'd got to know them particularly. But I don't know, maybe that's just me nitpicking. But I don't know. It's kind of
well, even then with the original, while you get to know them a bit better, they still ultimately just, I think, personalities. I mean, aside from Carl Weathers' character. I'm drawing a blank on the name now, Dylan. I think he's the only real one in that film that gets any sense of arc from betraying the team and then ultimately going out looking for Mac. That feels like the only real character arc in that film to me.
Right. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is, when they get killed off, you do feel some loss. I mean, Bill Duke's character for Mac, I mean, because he's lost his mate, and you see him pine for him, that whole sequence.
It gives you the time to understand what he's doing.
I felt this film just didn't take its time with anything, which was kind of it's definitely one of my criticisms with it. And as I said, it's kind of, I've got very mixed feelings because on one level I had fun watching it and I enjoyed it and I liked some of the things they did were cool, and it was okay. But then when I actually break it down in my head and think about it, it's like, and particularly the end. I mean, the ending is terrible. Yes. The ending is really friggin' bad.
That was a studio thing. That was one of the producers.
Yeah.
Bastards.
I mean, I don't think it was even shot by Shane Black. It doesn't look like it was. I mean, it's really weird because cinematography in that and the main actor as well looks so different. And also, so he kills this predator and stuff, and then suddenly he's promoted to general and head of this project.
Yeah. And I don't feel excited about where this is going to go, because it's obviously like trying to set up the next film. But I sort of think, well, this next film's going to be like, War Machine, Predator. um, you know. Well,
No.
exactly. It's kind of it just seems a bit shit,
You know what?
awful,
When I looked at that suit, it reminded me of two things. First of all, I don't know if you've ever seen in some of the gadget shops we have over here where you've got you see those sort of predators that are made out of
with
metal.
the bolts and
Yeah, it looks a lot like that, and also it looked like Shredder.
So I thought Iron Man.
Well, yeah, I mean it's certainly like an Iron Man suit, but the sort of the face of it and everything, it's like, oh, that's like Shredder, isn't it? It's just like,
yeah.
Fucking dreadlocks, those robot dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's just, it was super bad. I mean, the ending ruined it. What had its flaws but was quite entertaining and fast paced and a tad confusing in places, but it was still. But the ending really killed it. I mean, the ending was horrible. It didn't feel like a Predator film. It didn't feel like it should be in the Predator mythology at all. It's kind of like. I just want to forget this ending. It's like, I don't know. It's such a shame. Such a shame.
Yeah, I must admit, when I won't be getting this on Blu-ray or anything. I think if it comes on TV, I might watch it to a point, because it was an enjoyable ride when it was happening, but it's so many problems.
It's like Star Trek for me, the reboot, where I do really enjoy it as it's happening, and I do like the characters, but as everything's happening, as the plot happens, it frustrates the hell out of me when I try and think about it. That's what the rebooted Star Trek was like for me.
Oh, I mean, I enjoyed the first and the third one. The Into Darkness really annoyed me.
The third
which
one,
we've discussed in depth.
It was things like his super fast promotion and them letting them keep the ship and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, they wasted a few opportunities there for sure. But the other question I've got with this, and I don't know. Again, I'm always looking for Easter eggs and nods and all this, but when Olivia Munn's character gets to the lab near the beginning, and obviously there's all the evidence that for the last 30 years or whatever it is, these predators, and I did love the thing about the name, by the way, that did kind of make me chuckle.
Yeah.
But well, it's not really a predator, is it? And all this, but I noticed that they had like lots of props and stuff. Now, they had the Predator guns and stuff. Is this me looking too deeply into this? Were those the ones that were found at the end of Alien versus Predator Requiem? Or are those films nothing to do with this at all?
You say that. I don't know if the shoulder cannon was supposed to be from that one. I don't think it looked like the pistol they had. But on the other side, when she's looking at the spears,
right,
the spear at the very top is the one that Scar makes for Lex in Predator, with the alien tail strapped to the end of it.
Yeah,
right.
The first AVP, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's the number 2 Predator 2 spear under that.
Yes. Well, I mean, see, the thing is, I'm not. I haven't watched the AVP films for a while, and for a minute there, I thought that one of these predators was Scar for a minute because of the marks on the helmet, and then I thought, oh, is that the one from the And then I thought, no, Keith, forget that and just go with the movie, because otherwise you're going to get distracted. But,
well, you didn't have time to be distracted. I mean, Olivia Munn is like, is that? No, got to keep going. No, come this way. Yeah. We can't stop and ponder and stuff. We got to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that line just summed up the whole film. No, let's not watch this. Let's just keep going. So yeah. I mean,
so I don't know where. I mean, I'm quite frightened as to where it's going to go now.
Probably nowhere. I have to say, when I went to see this film, there was me and one other guy in the cinema. Mm-hmm. Okay, I gathered. Okay, this was a week but still, it was.
It's going to tank.
It's tanking.
It's going to tank.
I mean, if it comes on home media, you see, I'll want to get it if it's got loads of extras and if it's got Shane Black commentary.
I'd do it.
Because I do like Shane Black's commentaries. He's very frank about everything, and you know, it would be good to hear about what was changed and what some of the other ideas were and all that stuff. But you know, it's whether or not, you know, fewer and fewer releases are now having this sort of stuff. So particularly if the film hasn't done great. So he's not happy with it.
No, it doesn't sound like it at all from, you know, some of the various last interviews he's been given. He just sounds so fed up with the entire thing.
What a shame. It's yeah, you know, it's annoying because you do. I know I do. I want to love these things, and you know, to start with, I was a good way into the film thinking, oh, this is good. Yeah, this is. I'm happy with this. This is more like it. I'm liking this. I'm going to be saying good things about this, and then I started getting a bit. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused as to how quickly some of this stuff's taken place, and how did they get there, and where did he get a police car from, and I started getting all those things, and then it got to the end, and you know, the reveal of this this suit and whatever, and I was just like, oh, come on. And then yeah, I left the cinema and I was just like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say about this. I'm going to ponder it, but it's interesting. It sounds like, you know, your thoughts are very similar to mine on it. So which you know, I was hoping one of you was going to absolutely love it. And one of you was going to really hate it to the extreme, and but yeah,
unfortunately, a turd's a turd. No matter how entertaining it is. I mean, it's such a shame, because I think if Shane Black had just stuck with, unfortunately, you know, he had the studio on his back, because they wanted this to be they wanted it to be a summer blockbuster. I mean, the fact that they pushed it back to September was kind of telling that they've had no faith in it. But what always gets me is that they fuck around with it and then they have no faith in it. And it's just like, well, if you have no faith in it, why don't you just keep it to be the director's vision? Why did you need to fuck around with it and then just abandon it anyway?
Well, this is happening, far too often.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, one of the things I will say I did like, I love the fact that Henry Jackman used some of the Alan Silvestri theme music in the score for it. I was pleased to hear that. You know, I thought that worked quite nicely. But you know, I mean, I'm grasping at straws now to say something really good about it. But you know,
what did you think of Sterling K. Brown? Because he was something I really enjoyed in the film.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I thought. I in fact, to be honest, cast-wise, I didn't really have a problem with any of the actors. I thought that they all played the roles they were given well, and I thought that most of the dialogue and the banter and the characterization was pretty good. So, although you know, very unbelievable, but still kind of fun anyway. But yeah, Sterling K. Brown was sort of stand out for sure. Yeah,
I just loved his laugh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just sort of cutting in here for a bit, but Keith, do you think we should talk about the controversy about this film, about the casting of Sean Black's character mate, and the way that Olivia Munn's been treated afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously heard about that. I don't know. I don't know too much about it, but I mean, it's because he was.
Okay, well, what it is that there is a scene that's cut out. We all know it's been cut out, and that was the actual introduction to her character. You know, the bit when they turn up and they say, "You come with us, and we'll look after the dog." You know,
yes.
Like, what dog? Well, she was out walking her dog where this guy was hitting on her, and the guy who was playing that character is a friend of Shane Black's, and he's also on the sex offenders list.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and the thing was, Olivia Munn and the other actors didn't know this, and when she found out, she made a complaint about it to Fox, and Fox, I think, did the right thing and asked that scene to be taken out, because you don't really miss it. It's a bit of a weird introduction, but it's it doesn't really affect the film. But then the way that Hollywood's reacted to it, the way that they've been treating her has been really bad. I mean, she's been getting a lot of hate for this and a lot of pressure from Hollywood not to say anything, not to make it public.
Well, I mean, I think she did the right thing by reporting it to Fox. I think Fox did the right thing, to take the scene out or whatever, because this is the problem. I mean, this is a very delicate situation in Hollywood. Well, in all industries, but, it's particularly under the microscope in Hollywood. And, everybody, I guess, should be treated the same for that. But I don't know. It's awkward, isn't it? I don't know any of the individuals, and who knows. There's always two sides to every story. But yes, it's bad that Olivia Munn is getting shit about it, because I think what she did was right, and I think ultimately what they decided to do was right. To cut it, and I don't know what Shane Black's position was on that. I've no idea. I mean, I applaud him for looking after his mates, as it were. But yeah, I don't know.
He apparently didn't actually know the extent of what the guy had done,
right?
And he did. So when it all came out, like, Shane Black issued the statement of, it was my mate, I was standing by my mate, he's served his time, blah, 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 blah. But then when he read, like, the article that came out with that statement and Olivia Munn's stuff and the history of this guy's crime, he issued a second one saying, yeah, I didn't know about this. Nobody, my mate had lied to me about the extent of what he'd actually done. And had I known, I wouldn't have given him the work. Apparently he was in tears at the red carpet about it all. Shane Black.
Yeah, I mean, it's very awkward, and of course things like this loom shadows over the film as well. But
they say there's no such thing as bad press but there is when it comes to sexual related offences.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and should be. But
I mean, she's totally right in her thinking as well, isn't it? It's putting him in a position of. I mean, it was only a bit part, but, it's putting him up on the big screen and whatever. So, you can't fault her at all.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, you've got people's careers who are over because of these things, and rightly so or whatever. But it needs to be the same treatment across the board.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, it's kind of worrying that you would think after what's been going on with Kevin Spacey and Harvey Weinstein that Hollywood would be a bit more open about this, and they're still trying to kind of protect their own in some sense, because they really didn't want this to come out. It was kind of like, well, they were trying to shut Olivia Munn up, and it's just like, that's, come on, guys, those days are over. If anything, you try and do that now, it blows up in your face, because people will,
they'll call foul.
Yeah, because the fear of being blacklisted and not working is kind of not there, but it feels like it's still there. I think I don't know if it's happening right now or not, but it feels like Olivia Munn's career might have been taking a little bit of a battering here for that.
She came out against Bryan Singer, didn't she, in the past? So she's very much at the forefront of, like, calling out on these people. So
yeah,
I don't know what happened with the Bryan.
Yeah. I must admit, I tend to I tend to geek out about the movies themselves but the whole sort of politics side around all of that stuff, yeah, it's kind of yeah, it's the side of Hollywood that I don't like at all, and it's yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's part and parcel of it, Keith. I
you're
mean,
right. It is.
at
It
the
is.
end of the
Yeah.
day, why we get another Predator sequel and kind of some sense a little bit of a reboot as well is that Hollywood doesn't want to spend the time trying to create new stuff. They just went, well, what works? What have we had success with before? What are people going to go and see? And here we are going, oh, the Predator. We love Predator films, and here's a new one, and then, oh God, okay. And we do this.
Yeah, well, I mean,
we keep getting this. We keep going. These films are coming out, and we think, oh yeah, this is going to be great, and we go and see it, and it's awful, and we just, but we keep going back for it.
Yeah, no, and it's been a real summer of those kind of films as well, But I mean, talking of stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor, and obviously for a very different reason, I'm going to hasten to add. But
Okay.
apparently, Edward James Olmos
Yes.
was in the film as well, and his scene sadly got cut, which is a shame because I do really like him as an actor.
Yes.
So I don't know too much about that, but you've got to love Adama, absolutely. Yeah, so I don't know too much about that. Can you shed any light on that, Aaron? Do you know much about that?
Yeah, he was the general in charge of the Area 52 that Simon mentioned earlier.
So it was the original ending stuff then.
Yes,
Fuck, I
yes,
wish
yeah.
they'd kept that.
Well, I'm hoping that they'll put that in the home release stuff. I'm not too confident in it because Black had said stuff like all the effects weren't done when they'd started the reshoots, and it'd probably be expensive to finish them off. But
Yeah.
Well, some of the effects didn't feel like they were finished in the final film. I thought some of it looked really dodgy.
especially when it bites that guy's head, the upgrade when it's in the
Yeah.
tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this looks a bit shit, But
Practical suit looked awesome though, I thought.
Yeah, I have to. I
Yeah.
must admit, I just being a little nitpicky, but the whole thing with the Predator suit was that they could only camouflage when they had their masks on, and in this film they could just camouflage whenever they wanted. I mean, the upgrade never wore a mask. When he kills the fugitive Predator.
To be fair,
When he walks off when he does that spits and walks off, he just becomes invisible.
in Predator 2 at the end, not all of them had masks on when they decloaked.
Okay.
I don't think the elder did, definitely.
Okay.
right, yeah, I'm not too sure
Yeah.
about that. But
Okay.
I did think the ball thing was a little weird though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it would have
What was
made
that,
more
sorry?
sense.
The
The cloaking ball.
the cloaking ball, the thing
Oh,
that
right,
he
yeah.
pooped out.
yeah, that was weird. That
It
was
wouldn't have been
weird.
so bad if it was just like the gauntlet or whatever, but
yeah.
it all seemed psychic in it, which was strange as well.
Yeah.
Everything just intuited what he wanted it to do. I don't know.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
it was never the case in the other films. He always used the controller on his gauntlet. So,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there were things there were a few things that previous films had set up, which this I felt like it ignored, or it felt like it ignored some of the stuff, but I don't know. And of course, they part of all of this is they want to do something different, but at the same time the same, and it's a fine line thing, isn't it? So let me ask you. I want to ask you guys this question then, because obviously we know, and we've had a whole podcast where we've talked about how Alien Covenant kind of took a big dump on the whole mythology and the whole backstory thing.
Yeah.
But in your guys' head canon, as fans, does Predator and Alien exist in the same universe or not?
Yeah, I for me they do. I think the crossover films haven't been very successful, but that doesn't mean that they can not both exist in the same universe. I mean, for me,
Well, I mean, if you believe Covenant, they can't, because suddenly the whole history backstory of the alien has been like sort of cut short to 20 years before the first film or whatever it is, and nothing existed before that.
It does if you just don't count those films. It's just like, well,
Right.
okay, there's Aliens, and then there's Predator and Predator 2, and just like,
You've got to give it 3. You've got to give it Alien 3.
I flip flop with that film. I mean, sometimes I think it's good and sometimes I don't. I mean, the assembly cut is sort of a better version of it, but it still has its problems. I mean, okay, I'll give you Alien 3.
There's continuity issues for sure. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it kind of completes that sort of story. But yeah, I must admit, I really I don't. The Prometheus and Covenant is just like, no. Take them away. Take them away. I mean,
Yeah.
It's so funny to think, isn't it, Aaron, that when I first met you was at that alien convention that ADC held, and Prometheus was the thing to talk about, and we were going through the rumours and what was going to happen, and looking at like grainy photographs of sets and stuff, and thinking, oh, this is going to be so good, and what's it going to be about? Is it and now, sort of looking back at it years after its release, you just go, oh man, weren't we just duped?
That's when we didn't realise that Ridley Scott was only one part in a big machine.
Yes.
Well, it's back to what I said earlier about, the more they try and explain, you lose the mystery of stuff, and suddenly the mystery of the space jockey and the derelict ship and the aliens and the backstory and all of that stuff is suddenly explained and condensed, and just I don't know, just kind of takes away from it, and obviously is very contradictory with lots of other things that have been set up and spun off, and such.
Like this one, if we were to say that this film existed with the the alien ones and everything, where the fuck are all these special predator suits?
Yeah.
The new ones can't exist in line with the old concept, I don't think.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's it. I just think of like Prometheus and this one as not being canon. It's fan fiction. It just happens to be by the people who were involved in it originally, but it's like fan fiction because
expensive fan fiction.
Very expensive fan fiction. But I mean, at the end of the day, just discount Prometheus and you can have that mystery back, because Prometheus does not line up with Alien and Aliens. It doesn't line up with it at all, and neither does Covenant. So just like, that's fan fiction. That's somebody's attempt to try and explain it, but nah, that's not it.
And what were your thoughts on like God, I'm getting nerdy now, but like the first Alien versus Predator film, trying to sort of link it in with the whole sort of Charles Bishop Wayland character and stuff. I mean, did you think that was shit, or did you like it at the time?
That whole film was a car wreck. I went to see it to see how bad the car wreck was. I mean, it's just sort of, it's fan fiction. It's just, it's one of those like comic books that, when another film comes along, is like, it's not canon anymore. It's just like, I'm sure people really, like it, but I just like, no, it's just, it's fan fiction. It's just, somebody's idea of, what would it be like if an alien and a predator fought each other? And it was like these days. I mean, the whole trying to connect it up with the other films, it makes no fucking sense at all. Because, I mean, the whole sort of Bishop Wayland thing, it's like, so what did they do? They kept him on ice because they ever wanted to make an android in his image? It's just like, and also the fact that at that point he's such an old man and he looks nothing like the Bishop android.
Well, yeah, he was that, wanting to creating something in his own image, but obviously in his youth or at a younger point.
But that's a different character to what we
like
got in Prometheus.
Like the data thing.
It's just
AVPs can't exist with Prometheus is pretty cool.
Yeah,
continuity.
So it's just it's all a bunch of fan fiction. I mean, just keep to the original ones.
I guess you got to look at it like the Halloween films, and you've got the different strands of continuity, different legs of it or whatever. But what about you, Aaron, as the guy that actually runs the AVP Galaxy websites? I mean, what are your thoughts on all of that sort of thing?
Of all the things those films did, I think that was not massively intrusive. It's a bit contrived in the Skywalker kind of way, where everything in the galaxy has to do with the Skywalkers. It's kind of that in that everything in the Alien universe has to do with Ripley or
Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah. But the film at least attempts to marry that up in some way, because you're introduced to his character with a magazine cover where it says he's the father of modern cybernetics. So yeah, why the hell wouldn't they make one based on him in the future? I can buy that. That didn't bother me at all. And at the end of the day, it's one of the best things about that film.
Yeah. But of course, you've got the anomaly across the franchises as well, in the fact that you've got the late great Bill Paxton in both both franchises. So
yes. It's the only man to be killed by an alien, the Predator, and the Terminator.
There you go. There you go. And I
don't know. Don't they try and give Lance Hendrickson that title as well?
Oh, I suppose they do, don't they? Yeah.
Yes.
It would work for Lance also.
But he wasn't. Oh no, he wasn't killed by an alien. He was split in two, but he still survived. Bill Paxton's character definitely didn't survive.
AVP,
did we see Arnie kill him though? He only threw him away, if I remember rightly.
Well, no, because his character, he jumps out with the gun and you just hear bang. You don't actually see him killed, but you get the he certainly was killed by the Terminator. Yeah. But I mean, Bill Paxton's deaths are a lot more spectacular, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Paxton throws a golf ball at the Predator.
I like his character.
I liked his character
film.
too. I mean, Lance Henriksen, he was killed very quickly in Predator AVP. So, yeah.
Interesting, but it is a bit of a messy cocktail, isn't it? All these films.
It is too much attempt at some fan service, and it does get intrusive and messy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The more you try and do it.
Yeah. There is a lot of too much fan service. I mean, it's like when it's that weird thing. It's like, well, we're doing a Predator film, so what do we have to have? Well, we have to have the lines, you're one ugly motherfucker, you gotta, get to the chopper. And it's like, well, that's not what those films are about. They're just one-liners that were, probably made up on the day.
That's one of the worst things sequels do, in my opinion, these days.
Yeah, they all do it. They all do the fan service. And the
thing is, fans don't even like that.
Yeah. It's like, we'd like to see something new. We'd like to see a different... We don't need to see the same lines or... the whole get to the chopper thing in The Predator was... Yeah, it was a joke, but it wasn't funny. And the fact that... So there's this secret army base and they just happen to have, motorcycles, Harley Davidsons just lining around and enough for that they could all get away on them.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of silly. Yeah. In fact, what was the thing you were saying earlier, Aaron? I think it was just before we started recording, actually, where you said something about being a fan versus fandom, because I thought it was a really good point. What was it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things I enjoy being a fan of, just not being a part of fandom.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Now that's a very good saying, because obviously there's a lot of toxic fandom out there as well now, and yeah, it's really bizarre. It's a really bizarre thing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's like the amount of videos on YouTube about why a film is bad are just it's so much, and of course the main one that everybody keeps going back to say how bad it is The Last Jedi. And I can see that. I can see their points. I can see their points on it. But I enjoyed that film. I liked the fact that they went and did something different. And I get what they were saying about Luke's character and all this kind of stuff. But I still enjoyed the film. But I feel that I shouldn't enjoy the film from seeing all these videos that keep telling me how bad this film is. And I should think this film is bad.
Well, yeah, that one's quite divisive, isn't it?
I think there's a sense these days of people aren't allowed opinions that differ to your own, and if they do, then they're wrong. I mean, I realise we've probably just spent the last 2 hours bitching about Predator,
but I mean, we're not.
I'm not
saying, yeah,
complimenting it as well. You know, the good bits.
It's just why expend all that energy on something you dislike? Is my opinion of toxic fandom.
Yeah,
there's one thing about sort of giving your opinion, saying what I didn't like it, but what a lot of these videos are doing is saying this film is bad, full stop. And it's like, how can you like this film? And it's just like, that is what I don't like. If you didn't like the film and these are the reasons why you didn't like the film, fine. But they're saying it's bad because of these things. This is a bad film. And it's like, well, no, wait a minute. I love this film. I enjoyed it, and it does kind of make you have to sort of you have to sort of. It might have been a case that I just liked the film, but now I've got to love the film because I feel I have to defend it against all these people who hate the film, who says it's a bad film. It's just a really weird thing, and it seems just like the last couple of years have really reared its head.
Well, that's the internet for you. That's social media for you, and But what one final thing I'd like to talk about, or I'd like to dig into a little bit on Predator, and the reason it is the expanded media, and the reason I say that is when we last had you on, Aaron, you recommended some of the spin-off Alien stuff, and you mentioned at the time about there being audio dramas, and anybody who knows me knows I like a good audio drama based on properties that I'm into, and knowing that you were coming back on finally made me get my Audible subscription sorted out so I could listen to the first of 3 audio dramas called Alien Out of the Shadows, which is takes place between the first 2 films. And I was actually, I have to say, it's like a 4.5 hour, so it's more like a mini series than a movie, I guess. But I had to go up to our head office in Nottingham, and that's from North London. That's like a 2.25 hour drive each way. So it was perfect because I was able to listen to half of it on the way up and half of it on the way back. And I was really blown away by this. The production values on it were really good. It was real immersive audio, and it was really well written, well performed, and well characterized. It was directed by Dirk Maggs, who's kind of a guy who's got a history with audio dramas.
Hitchhiker's Guide, wasn't it?
Exactly, and he also did the in the sort of 90s, he did the Doomsday and the Death of Superman and
Oh, he did
Batman
Independence
Nightfall
Day
and
as
all
well.
that. Yes, he. Oh, yeah, which was what the UK one.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
which was quite creative, because it was kind of like Ghost Watch meets Independence Day. It was like one of those sort of, or meets sort of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds type of idea, wasn't it? But no, this was really good. I mean, it does kind of the story, although very entertaining, does kind of suffer in the fact that it includes the character of Ellen Ripley, which is obviously bizarre, as she's supposed to be in a hypersleep, and they do have kind of a way of explaining that. But I have to say, the actress that voiced Ellen Ripley in this, I literally thought I was listening to Sigourney Weaver. It was uncanny, absolutely brilliant. So I highly recommend this, and I'm definitely going to listen to others. These are Audible direct productions, and I know there's the 3 of them out, and I hope that more of this stuff continues, because I just thought it was really well done. So that's just kind of a long-winded way of me asking, is there anything on the sort of Predator side of things in terms of the expanded media that you would recommend to me and Simon and any of our listeners?
Unfortunately, there's no audio dramas for these.
Damn it. Okay.
But in terms of Aliens, there is a fan one that I would recommend. It's only like 4 or 5 episodes in, but it's kicking up quite nicely. I'd recommend that one. It's called Alien Solara. I'll drop you a link actually if you're interested.
Cool.
But there was a book, an anthology last year that I think it was last year, that I would wholeheartedly recommend to anybody who enjoys reading media tie-ins, which was called Predator If It Bleeds. And it's just like it's an anthology, loads of short stories from pretty much all over. So there's stuff in the past, there's stuff in samurai times, cowboy times. They tie into the disappearance of a American Civil War general whose name currently escapes me. He got shot by his own men coming back from Pan. No, it's not Pan. Whatever. I don't really know American Civil War history, but that was tied into the real thing. That book was phenomenal. 5 out of 5 for me for that. The only other one I always recommend is a book that's now really hard to get hold of. So it's called South China Sea. Predator South China Sea, and that's another 5 out of 5 one for me. But unfortunately, that's out of print, and it's really hard to get hold of. And we're sort of hoping that Titan will reprint that, like they've done all the Alien books. The new comic was good. Predator Hunters, that was kind of good. That's the same sort of concept as what I kind of wish this would have been, with a team going around combating the predators. You know, they know about them and they're tracking their activities and stuff like that. But no, there's not really a lot. You know, the Predator is half as much as there is Alien.
Right, yeah.
And AVP's half as much again as there is Predator. So, you know, Alien's got way more media to it, films and expanded universe.
Right. Fair enough. But some of those stories are quite good, and I mean that's the good thing with I guess Predator, unlike what they've sort of done with Alien now, is because they're, you know, we don't know how long Predator's history has been, then you can sort of go back. I mean, obviously they had the thing with the gun, didn't they, in Predator 2?
They did a comic on that.
Like which is really cool. So I mean, technically, you could have these Predator encounters throughout sort of our Earth history, and it kind of works and makes sense, particularly as they're invisible, and you know, we never used to have, obviously in our past, the tracking technology and whatever that we have now. So it kind of seems feasible, and I like that they've tied it into things like the American Civil War and all that sort of stuff. I think that's quite exciting and quite makes for good fiction. Yeah, why not?
Well, Keith, I have a recommendation for you then. You should check out Predator Dark Ages, which is a fan-made short film. It's available on YouTube, and it's kind of like...
It's well made, is it?
Yeah. No, it's really fantastic. And, you know, it's in some ways, it's kind of like what they should really be doing with Predator. I mean, not make it... Let's have a period piece one. Let's have it set in a, like Dark Ages, or, you know, with knights, or maybe with cowboys and Indians. You know, there's so many different things it can do with it, instead of trying to sort of always do it in the modern day.
Problem with that is it's inherently more expensive, though, isn't it, to do a period piece?
But the amount of money they spent on this new Predator film, they could have done it.
True. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you know, like you said, they either set it contemporary or they set it in a near future that then doesn't look like that when we get to it. I mean, that was the one thing that Predators did do very well, is setting it on another planet entirely, even though it was largely a forest-type planet anyway. But you know, that was quite an interesting idea, I guess.
Yeah.
But too bad there's no audio dramas. That would have been great.
I'm worried we're not going to get any more Alien ones, to be honest.
Have they not sold well then?
I don't know how well they've done. It's just a case of they've been doing it as the last load of books have been released. So those 3 were the first 3 that came out of the books, and the next lot that they did was it was an AVP trilogy, but it was massive. And how we'll condense that down, I don't know if it did do it. But then even better was that the next Alien book that came out was, oh my God, this I recommend to everybody. Alien: The Cold Forge. It's written by Alex White, who, it was a phenomenal book, really awesome. But I don't know if that one would work as well as an audio piece, because there's a lot of internal monologuing with nothing really, you know. It's about being quiet. It's about, like, you know, the alien isolation kind of experience.
Yes.
Right. And there's a real thing now with expanded media and novels and whatever, whereas historically it was always, well, these are adventures, but they're non-canon, right? All of the sort of major IPs now are saying that, you know, the novel stuff is canon because it has to go through story groups and whatever with the studios and the production companies. So, you know, apparently the Alien books that have sort of come out in the last sort of 4 or 5 years or whatever are considered to be actual canon material rather than just licensed merchandise. Is that right?
Yeah. And Isolation, and the comics that have come out in the last 4 years or so as well.
Really?
Right.
I mean, I read Out of the Shadows because Keith, you got the books from me last year for my birthday. And
I did, didn't I?
Yeah, it was a fun read, but I didn't consider it to be canon. It's just it makes no. I mean, it's fun, but it makes no fucking sense. And also the fact that Ash is not an AI. He couldn't upload himself to the shuttle, so that's just no.
Yeah, I mean they kind of got round the fact that, you know, they had Rutger Hauer in the audio drama doing the voice for Ash, and of course obviously Ripley's voice is spot on, but they actually say about the reason that Ash doesn't sound the same is because the AI is speaking through the computer on the ship rather than the physical voice synthesizer of the synthetic and all this sort of stuff. So they do sort of have, I mean, the problem with the story is obviously at no point do you feel that Ripley is actually in any danger, because we know that she survives it.
Yeah.
And obviously you realise that quite a lot of the other cast, and there's a cast of about 12 or 15 characters or whatever in this, are going to be you know, alien fodder by the end of it. But at the same time, it was really well produced. I mean, the sound design, you believed you were in the world of the Alien films because they used a lot of the the audio effects.
A lot of it was from Isolation, which was great because that thing won awards for its sound design.
Oh,
right, yeah. I mean, this was really good with that, and also, it wasn't censored in any way. They dropped the F-bomb a lot of times, like the people do in the films, so it did feel that it was part of that alien world, and it kind of took place sort of about 20 years before Aliens, about 37 years or whatever after Alien. It was sort of in that period, but obviously they do a sort of bit of a naff thing to kind of
yes.
make it all tie in, which is a little bit yeah.
Like that's the problem I have with reading some media tie-ins is looking for the big red button.
Yes, and they have to have it. But I have to say, in terms of the voice cast on this, really, really good. And seriously, the actress that did Ripley, I was absolutely convinced I was listening to Sigourney Weaver. I mean, it is uncanny. It really is. So,
Laurel Lefko, I think it is.
That's it. That's who I've not seen a picture of her, and I'm kind of glad about that because in my head I see Sigourney Weaver, young Sigourney Weaver, and I kind of don't want that kind of ruined, if you know what I mean. So, but no, it was a really entertaining little sort of 4.5 hour adventure. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. So thank you for the recommendation because and I am going to listen to there are 2 more, you said, yeah, within that sort of
River of Pain, which is the Fall of Hadley's Hope, and then Sea of Sorrows, which is kind of like a sequel to the first one, in terms of it being all the planety stuff.
Yeah, Sea of Sorrows was really good, and it is a direct follow-on from Out of the Shadows. River of Pain was okay. I mean, I had read the Dark Horse version of that before.
See, I never liked that.
Yeah.
Oh, this was based on a comic, was it?
No, there was
rips.
Yeah.
It rips a few pieces from that comic.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like based on it as such.
Yeah.
All those 3 books have certain problems in them that come from Fox because they were all sort of like Fox's ideas, and it's like what we were saying earlier with fan service. With Ripley's inclusion in that one because fans love Ripley, and then with River of Pain with the Colonial Marines because everybody loves Colonial Marines.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
They are better than they should be considering they're sort of studio mandated kind of books.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, Keith, the experience of how well those dramas are put together kind of make up for any of that kind of stuff while you're listening to them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was really good. It was really well done, and I was really happy. I was like, fucking hell! I wish I'd sorted out my Audible account ages ago. It's kind of like good to listen to that instead of the numerous podcasts that I tend to listen to. So. It was a good bit of entertainment on a drive. So, and then you recommend the Predator prequel novel to the film. Yeah,
that was good. That was good. And the anthology, If It Bleeds, that one's great as well.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Excellent. Cool. Excellent. Well, any final things or thoughts that you want to say about the massive Predator franchise? Before we wrap this up, then
let's just hope this doesn't kill it. But then again, we had to wait 20 years between Predator 2 and Predators. Was it 20? Was it 10? It was a nice chunky wait there. So even if this does go into hibernation, I just hope this ancillary stuff in the middle, being as it's one of the things I'm really interested in, it's just been nice to make sure that there's always that expanded universe stuff coming out to tide me over.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Simon?
Well, let's see what happens. What the fallout is for this film. It'll probably be, as we say, probably another chunk of time before we see another Predator film, and hopefully it'll be something, I don't know, better. I mean, it's kind of like, what do you do with it now?
Yeah. Yeah, I must admit they put themselves in a bit of a place with it, and obviously it's a shame that there's such a dark shadow hanging over this film because of the other controversy as well. It's just a shame that the state of things, really. But yeah. But we've I say the same as I do about the Alien films: is, oh well, we've always got the first two. So
Yes. Exactly.
and I will revisit Predators at some point, and give that another chance, because as I said, I haven't watched it in a while, and I was much the same as with this film. Was I kind of enjoyed it when I was watching it, and then the more I thought about it afterwards, I started having issues with it. But that's my own doing.
So, Aaron, where can people find out more about the AVP website?
Our homepage is avpgalaxy.net. Oh my life, I had to think about it for a minute there. avpgalaxy.net. We're on all the socials as either AVP Galaxy or Alien verse Predator Galaxy, verse as in VS. And that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram as well. If you just like looking at pretty pictures, Instagram's there.
Yeah, and it is extremely comprehensive what you've got there. I mean, you have literally delved into every facet of both of these franchises, and yeah, I mean, it really is. Put it this way, if I want to find something out now about any of the films, it'll be one of the places I'm visiting for sure. So really good work there, mate.
Thank you. It is a team effort, I will say that. I'm not going to claim all the credit. I do have a couple of other guys who help. We all appreciate that.
Cool.
And Keith, where can people find out more about your work?
Well, if you go to YouTube and you put in British Isles, that's EYLES, as in my last name, you can see some short films that I've made there. Alternatively, if you put my name into IMDb, you can see past, present, future credits up there as well. And very shortly, there's going to be a web series release that I was involved in called Rebecca Gold. So if you put Rebecca Gold web series, there's a YouTube page to subscribe to, and then there's loads of information on Facebook and other social media.
And as always, you can find my work at independentrunnings.com. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and all good podcast providers. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. And please leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher. It all helps. So, come to the end of another packed episode.
Yeah, one day we will get back to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, won't we?
We will, yes.
But these specials seem to be quite popular with people, so and I enjoy doing them selfishly, so whatever.
If you didn't enjoy it, what would be the point?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that just leaves me to thank Aaron for coming on.
No worries. Thank you for the invite. I always love having a good nerd out session.
And I hope you join us for the next episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.